Enthusiasts and the engine Audi team had something to get excited about when Terry Moss, another local boy, came up with the third fastest time amongst the factory entries. Duncan Voss was back in business after his first session woes to claim second place in the VP Nissan Primera, with the Sasol BMW squad's impressive form continuing with pole position going to the 1994 touring car champion Sean van der Linde. Van der Linde at the top of the heap with times again desperately close. This time just over a second separated the first 8 cars on the grid. The cars out on the formation lap for round 13 of the Bankfin Touring Car Championship, and another quick look at the grid. Pole position for the first time this season for Mike Briggs in the Sasol Beamer. Alongside him, De Villiers in Nissan Primera. Row 2, Van der Linde BMW and Taylor Audi. Row 3, Moss Audi and Privateer dos Santos Nissan Sentra. Row 4, Aberdeen Audi and Wabash Toyota Camry. And completing the top 10 privateers, Peters and Besaidnout. 20 laps around the tight Aldo Scribante circuit, and a nicely bunched field as they got the green light, with Briggs leading the charge to the right-hander at Luke Repco. A little argy-bargy with Van der Linde locking up and making contact with De Villiers. Myrtle pushed wide and through came Terry Moss into second with Van der Linde third, and Marco dos Santos squeezed past Anthony Taylor. Through the Conti S's, Taylor and De Villiers were side by side, and it was a little crowded out there. An early wake-up call there too for Duncan Voss as well, with the second Nissan starting from the back of the field. Into the Honda hairpin for the first time, and a great start for Terry Moss from 5th on the grid and towards the back of the field. An early off-road excursion for George Besaidnout. Race cam action is now from the Garth Wabaski DAW Toyota Camry, and ahead of him Mark Peters as the field streams through the Firehawk sweep for the first time. Up ahead of Peters and Wabaski, cars were carrying early battle scars, with George Besaidnout back in action with the Nissan Sentra also looking a little worse for wear. It's Sasol BMW, engine Audi, Sasol BMW, and then the chasing pack down the main straight. In a battle between privateers, Garth Wabaski was having a go at Mark Peters and came storming through on the inside at Luke Repco. Wabaski looked to have got that little move right, while at the front of the field, Briggs was reveling at leading a Bankfin touring car race in front of his home crowd. Behind him, teammate Van der Linde and Moss were locked in battle, with Van der Linde forcing his way ahead of the Audi through hangar. Sasol BMs were now 1 and 2, with the 1994 touring car champion having to defend the inside line at the Honda hairpin as the 1996 champion tried to fight back. Terry Moss chasing after Sean van der Linde, with Privateer dos Santos 4th and holding off the Taylor Audi. From second on the grid, De Villiers was down to 6th and had Aberdeen climbing all over him. Anthony Taylor was trying to find a way around Marco dos Santos, who grabbed his chance at the first corner to pick up a couple of places. On to the main straight, dos Santos led a little train that included Taylor, De Villiers, Aberdeen and Wabaski, with Duncan Voss working his way through the field and moving ahead of Mark Peters. Race cam action from the Taylor engine Audi, and he never made much of an impression on the Duckham's Nissan down the main straight, but dos Santos left the door wide open at Luke Repco. Taylor came charging up on the inside and going into the Conti S's. He had the better line for the exit of the corner. Briggs led the pack out of the S's, with Van der Linde and Moss in full chase, and as they emerged from the S's, Taylor had pushed dos Santos back a place. In-car action now from the De Villiers BP Nissan Primera, with Chris Aberdeen filling his mirrors. Now it was the turn of the championship leader De Villiers and Aberdeen to try and find a way around dos Santos, with Briggs, Van der Linde and Moss threatening to pull away from the trio. The BP Nissan Primera was trailing the rear fender, but that wasn't slowing De Villiers down at all. Through the Conti S's on lap 5, with the 2 Sasol Beamers of Briggs and Van der Linde still leading the engine Audi of Terry Moss. 2 local drivers in the top 3 was keeping the crowd happy, with Taylor chasing after the leading trio in the second engine Audi. Chanil De Villiers had also got past privateer Marco dos Santos and was now up to 5th. Duncan Voss was still charging through the field and had a bird's eye view of a coming together at the Honda hairpin between Marco dos Santos and Chris Aberdeen. That saw Voss pick up another 2 places, with Garth Wabaski and Mark Peters also benefiting as Aberdeen and dos Santos try to sort themselves out and get back into the fray. Down Down the main straight in race order was Briggs, van der Linde, Moss, Taylor, de Villiers and Voss ahead of privateers Garth Wabashki and Mark Peters. That was about to change at Luke Repko, with Sean van der Linde making a clean passing move on teammate Briggs to move into the lead. Briggs gave van der Linde all the room he needed and was in a position to ride shotgun on van der Linde, who was fighting for a top 3 place in the championship. Briggs hadn't won a race since joining the Sassel BMW team, but with van der Linde well placed in the championship, there was a hint of team orders behind the move. It was Briggs who had the 2 engine Audis breathing down his neck, and he was quick to defend the inside line at the Honda hairpin. While a fascinating battle unfolded up front, it was the end of the road for George Besaidnout, who finally called it a day after his lap 1 trials and tribulations at Hanger Bend. Lap 10 and Briggs was doing a marvellous job of holding up everyone else to allow teammate van der Linde to storm off into the distance. With the Sassel BMW team looking for only its 2nd win of the season, these were sound tactics, and they were working. Janil de Villiers had forced his way past Anthony Taylor to move up to 4th, and Briggs looked perfectly prepared to take a lump or 2 if it meant keeping the pressure off teammate van der Linde. He could expect a few bumps and bangs from hard man Terry Moss, with de Villiers also in the firing line where Taylor was concerned. This was a battle with huge potential for ending in tears, and looming up behind them and eager to add his pennyworth to the proceedings was Duncan Voss in the 2nd Nissan Primera. Duncan Voss had done a good job of working his way through the pack from the back of the grid, and Briggs now led a 5-car train that included Moss, de Villiers, Taylor and Voss, who was now right up with the 2nd of the engine Audis. Voss again had a bird's eye view as de Villiers and Taylor exchanged pleasantries at Goodyear Corner, and the potential for drama was increasing by the second. De Villiers and Taylor were still at it as they hit the main straight, and Luke Repko was going to be interesting. On the run down to the 2nd gear corner at the end of the straight, Taylor pushed de Villiers wide, but in so doing left a gap down the inside. Voss tried to force his way through, but Taylor managed to hold on, and the big loser was de Villiers, who went from 4th to 6th in one easy move. Ahead of this trio, Moss was still climbing all over Briggs, and the 2-time touring car champion in the Sassel Beamer was certainly earning his paycheck. It's good stuff from the race cam with Moss Audi, but something had to give in this battle, and the Honda hairpin was just the right place. Moss and Voss both went for the inside line, Briggs and Taylor the long way round. 4 into 2, just one go, and the almost inevitable contact, and that little lot saw the unfortunate Briggs emerge the victim. The Sassel BMW spun half into the infield, and by the time Briggs was mobile again, Moss and company were long gone, and there was an ominous smoke starting to pour from the front right wheel arch of the Sassel BMW. The main straight in race order was now van der Linde disappearing into the distance. The engine Audis of Moss and Taylor and the BP Nissan Primeras of Duncan Voss and Janil de Villiers. Briggs was limping his way back to the pits, with smoke now billowing from the right front wheel arch, and it was clear his race was over as he headed for the pits. As he pulled off, the trio of privateers, Peters, Wabashki and De Santos stormed past. Replay action of the Briggs incident, and it's almost impossible to tell who got in the first nudge. Once the tail of the Sassel BMW started to step out, Briggs was dead meat. Briggs was missing from the Moss-Voss-Taylor de Villiers battle, but the action was far from over. Taylor and Voss tangled in the Conti S's and were still swapping paint as they went through the left-hand kink and the right-hander at Hanger Bend. Neither driver was prepared to budge, and the crowd packed into the spectator area at the hairpin. They were treated to more action with heavy contact, this time between Taylor and Voss, who half-spun. That was all teammate de Villiers needed, and he was through like a flash to win back a place at the expense of Voss. It was all getting a little hectic out there, with the Audis and the Nissan Primeras battered and bruised and looking a little worse for wear. Matters were also getting interesting in the battle of the privateers. After his early clash with Chris Aberdeen, a determined Marco de Santos had fought back and was now ahead of Garth Wabashki and pressurizing championship leader Mark Peters. Ahead of them, the 2 engine Audis still led the 2 BP Nissan Primeras, with championship leader de Villiers ahead of teammate Voss. At stake in this battle was a place on the podium, and through Luke Repko, the right-hander at the end of the main straight, and through the Conti S's, de Villiers was all over the back of Taylor and looking for a way around the Audi. Back at Luke Repko, a fired-up Marco dos Santos was also looking for a way around Mark Peters and got the Duckham's Nissan Sentra all crossed up with this battle poised for an interesting finish. The penultimate lap with Sean van der Linde and the Sassel BMW cruising along with his second win of the season in sight. With no Briggs to protect him, van der Linde had lost ground to Terry Moss but is in no danger. Moss also had a little cushion over de Villiers, Taylor and the fast scrap, and it was here that it was going to be a fight to the finish. Taylor was the engine Audi meet in the BP Nissan Primera sandwich. With all the points they could muster, important issues for de Villiers and Foss. De Villiers needed his points to take a step closer to back-to-back championships, with Foss in second place under pressure from both race leader van der Linde as well as Moss. Down the main straight for the last time, and someone had to take the bull by the horns if there was going to be a change in race order amongst this quartet. It was Foss who decided that attack was the best policy, and he decided to take the fight to Anthony Taylor by going around the outside at Luke Repko. The pair were swapping paint again, but this time Foss had the inside line for the exit from the Conti S's, and with a final nudge that did not please Taylor one little bit, the BP Nissan driver was in front of the Audi man. Race leader Sean van der Linde was safely through the Honda hairpin for the last time, and in the Sassel BMW pit, they were getting ready for the celebrations. Behind him, battle was far from over, with de Villiers making a last-ditch effort to get past Moss and Taylor in the second engine Audi, who was trying to do the same way Foss in the second BP Nissan Primera was concerned. Out of Goodyear corner for the last time, and victory to Sean van der Linde in the Sassel BMW. Moss just managed to hold off de Villiers with Foss ahead of Taylor. Mark Peters held on to take the privateer honours, but it was van der Linde who was the man of the moment, with generous praise for teammate Mike Briggs.
Michael made it very easy for me. He held the other guys up for lap after lap, and I managed to stretch